I actually liked having the two Monday night games, ladies and gentlemen. Felt nice watching both games. Honestly, they were good. I was expecting gross Packers Giants game. Was not excited to watch Tommy DeVito. He came through. The spread on the Dolphins game was 13.5 points. Obviously, Tyreek being in and out did not help, but that game went down to the very end. Super exciting. Let's go through. And first off, let's get a congrats for everybody who made the fantasy football playoffs. Super excited for y'all, ladies and gentlemen. Please spam the chat if you made the playoffs. And if you did not, I am very sorry. I hope that you had fun. And I hope we get to see you next year. But I'm assuming most of y'all out here right now are in the fantasy football playoffs. So let's go ahead and let's recap what happened tonight. First off, looking over the Packers game. Jordan Love, 39 pass attempts, 218 passing yards. Efficiency wasn't necessarily there. If you're looking at the receivers, Jaden Reed has 10 targets. So while Jaden Reed has 10 targets, I mean, the underlying receiving volume, the efficiency is not there, but it doesn't matter. The volume is, he gets the rushing touchdown. He has 4 carries as well. So, I mean, Jaden Reed at this point looks to be someone that in your deeper leagues, especially your dynasty leagues, right? That's where you're going to be starting him. I'd say if you're in like a 10-team league where you start 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, probably have no interest starting Jaden Reed. If you're in the fantasy football playoffs, your team's probably strong enough where you don't have to worry about it. However, if you're in that league where it's a dynasty format where you start 10, 11 guys, they are definitely someone that we can look at with this kind of volume. A.J. Dillon, whatever, who cares? I mean, if Aaron Jones comes back, we're never starting A.J. Dillon. Still probably not starting him regardless. Really, the only thing to look at here is Jaden Reed is someone that we are starting in deeper formats, particularly in Dynasty. Going over to the Giants side of things, Saquon Barkley, 20 carries, comes away with multiple rushing touchdowns, helps us in a few key underdog matchups, which I am very excited about. We had Wan'Dale Robinson as someone who drafted in a ton of underdog leagues. I mean, obviously, that's going to be someone that you don't care about at all from a regular redraft perspective. Really, the only thing is, good football game, fun to watch. Saquon Barkley, we're still starting every single week. Nothing really changes there. Now, going over to the Titans-Dolphins game, y'all know one of my favorite pick'ems this week was Derrick Henry for fewer than 55.5 rushing yards. Expecting this to be a blowout. The spread on this game was 13.5 points. And Derrick Henry does go fewer than 55.5 rushing yards, but has 2 rushing touchdowns, so he gets there in fantasy. And he actually advanced us into, I believe it was a $350 tournament we were sweating out. Well, $350 buy-in. I don't even remember what first place was. But yes, we end up advancing. We get second place there by 10 points. On the back of Derrick Henry, Mr. Henry, thank you for finding the end zone. Thank you for allowing our underdog pick'ems to stay intact. Will Levis looks great. They're able to come away with the W here. DeAndre Hopkins dominates target volume. He has 12 targets. Tajee Spears looks great with 8 targets, 6 receptions, 89 receiving yards. Very fun game to watch. I'd say DeAndre Hopkins, probably someone that you're having to start going forward if Will Levis going to play at this level. I think you rank DeAndre Hopkins as a top 24 wide receiver. And then if you have Derrick Henry going up against the Houston Texans team with no CJ Stroud this next week, you'd really be excited about starting Derrick Henry if the Titans are going to be favored in the game. Now, going over to the Dolphins, look at the running back usage. Raheem Mostert has 96 rushing yards and multiple rushing touchdowns. So I recorded our running back rankings before this game. I recorded it right at the beginning, right when Tyreek Hill went down. And yes, we are going to have to update these. We are going to have to move Raheem Mostert back to back with Achane. Let's go ahead and let's pull up where we had these guys, because Mostert is the running back that gets the volume here. Going forward, I'm still probably starting both these running backs every single week. It's still only a two-man split backfield. They're not getting a third guy. They're not getting Jeff Wilson in here. Raheem Mostert has the volume. Raheem Mostert's probably going to be the guy that we are looking to start. But if you look at Achane, he has 9 targets out of this backfield as well. So I'd say based off this offense, based off what we have seen from these guys all season, you're going to be starting both Mostert and Achane in the fantasy football playoffs, and you're not going to be overthinking it. Well, Tyreek Hill, definitely it's frustrating the fact that he was in and out of this game. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people that needed a big Tyreek Hill performance to get into the fantasy football playoffs. And clearly you don't get that. Still can't be super upset with Tyreek Hill. I mean, if you have Tyreek on your team and you didn't make it to the playoffs, that's probably a you issue. It's probably not something we should be crying about. That'd be like Patrick Mahomes crying about an offsides call at the end of the game. Just do better throughout the entire game. Do better throughout the entire season if you make the playoffs. While having Tyreek, not his fault, probably yours. Tyreek's going to be good to go going forward. Sounds like he is not going to be missing time, at least from what I'm seeing right now. Of course, please let me know in the live chat if I am wrong. Jalen Waddle goes out there. He has 8 targets, 6 receptions, 79 receiving yards. You start Tyreek, you start Waddle, you start both running backs, start everybody in this offense. I'm excited to see the implied team total next week. I'm assuming it's not going to be 30 points as we're used to at this point, but it's still probably in a range of a top 3 offense in the NFL. But honestly, let me know what y'all think in the live chats. But I was very pleasantly surprised from what we had with 2 Monday night games. I think if you have 2 Monday night games that don't project to be great, like I would rather have the second Monday night game than a London game, to be honest with you. Sometimes when we're watching these primetime games on Monday night, on Sunday night, I mean, if the game is bad, it's like, okay, do I turn this off? Do I go do something else? You know, but if there are 2 games at once, I don't even care if they're 2 bad games. If I can watch them both at the same time on 2 different monitors, I mean, it's great. I actually liked it. But let me go ahead and let me dive into some of these questions that we had, ladies and gentlemen. Angus says, hey, Mason, pick one. Puka, Wilson, or Collins if he plays. Collins definitely if he plays. If he doesn't, we're going to go Puka. And then should we be worried about Amon-Ra? No, you should not. We talk about this in the video tomorrow. Should be just fine. Thanks as always, and have a great night, my man. No, thank you so much, and hope that you have a great one, my friend. And happy to hear that you were in the playoffs. Now, moving this over, Kidlow says, Hype Miami lost for how they did Achane, 11-3 in first place. Achane had 11 targets. I don't think we need to be too worried. He's going to be fine, my friend. He's going to be fine. Now, Hogan says, I'm out of the playoffs because of Dobbs over Lawrence. We lost by 0.1 and 0.02 this year. I'm so done. It's fantasy 2 leagues. That is absolutely brutal, my friend. I mean, Joshua Dobbs, I thought, oh, okay, implied team total 21 points. Vegas telling us that's going to be an average to above average offense. He has some rushing upside. Jefferson's coming back in. And then to see the wheels completely fall off. I saw someone on Twitter earlier today compare Joshua Dobbs to like Linsanity. And while I don't necessarily think that it is that close, I mean, obviously Linsanity is almost in his entirely different league as just an absolute legend. It is still kind of crazy to see Dobbs come in and have everything. And then I am sorry, every time that I've ever rooted for a stat correction, I've never gotten it. There's never been an instance where I was like, oh my gosh, we were so close here. I just need a stat correction. Bring it in. Bring it home. And then it ended up working out in our favor. So I'm rooting for you for a stat correction, but I'm not hopeful you were getting one, my friend. Not hopeful. Now, Ethan says, lost Herbert, love Wilson or Stafford. We're going to be going with Stafford, my friend. Right now, the Rams actually have the second highest implied team total going up against Washington than any other team this week. Omega Les Paul says, first seed, baby. Oh, my man, I am happy for him. I'm happy for you. Colin says, Aubrey clutch for me. I won by 5 to make it in the playoffs. Hell yeah. I asked y'all in the live chat in the premiere, last night how many points in your league Aubrey scored. A lot of people were saying he scored 22, 23, 24 points in their leagues, which is absolutely nuts. King Flores says Flacco or Stafford rest of season. It's going to be Stafford and not too close, my friend. Peyton says Allen to start without Herbert. Yes, Allen will be. We're going to lower our expectations. I do think that Allen's now a mid to low end wide receiver 1 instead of a high end wide receiver 1, however. Now, Michael says, needed Achane to outscore Tyreek to secure the number 1 seed in the playoffs. 1-2. Super hype. Thanks for the help this year, Mason. No, thank you so much for hanging with us, my friend. And while, of course, we don't ever want to be rooting for injuries, congrats on making it to the playoffs. Congrats on making it. Okay. Now, Michael also says, also the team is Allen, Kyron, Gibbs, Achane, Jefferson, Ayuk, Kittle, Rice, Sutton, Javonte. Who do we start? Could we possibly start Rice over Ayuk? So I am very excited about what we have with Rashee Rice. If you look at Rice, I mean, this man is just playing so many snaps now, and obviously he's in a top-tier offense, blah, blah, blah. But to look at the large sample that we've had from Brandon Ayuk, to pivot off Ayuk to go to Rashee Rice, you would definitely be overthinking it at that point. That's not something we are looking to do. I think that you're going to start Kyron and Gibbs at running back. We're going to go Ayuk and Rice at wide receiver if Jefferson misses. If Jefferson plays, we'll go Ayuk and Jefferson. And then we're going to be going Achane in the flex almost no matter what. Now, Young Dolly says, I'm 6-8. I'm the best 6-8 team in the league. Have PPR. Others are tied with me, and I outscored them by at least all 100 points cumulatively. I have Tyreek to thank. That is the closest thing I've ever heard, my friend. You had 5 teams tied for 6-8. 5 teams. One thing that I do in my dynasty leagues that I run, ladies and gentlemen, is I make the last playoff spot not based off record, but instead the first playoff spots are determined regular order based off record. And then if you have a tie in record, then it goes 2 points. But the last playoff spot, I just look at the 7 teams that are not in based on record and then see who has the most points overall. So even if you were, say, somehow, I don't know, 4-10, but you had the most points in the league, then you get into the playoffs. I think it's a nice balance, and it does make it where you're never in a spot where one of the best teams in the league doesn't get in based off an unlucky matchup or 2, which I like rewarding the best teams in the league. Now, Peyton says, if we're not starting Allen, do you think Cup, Reed, say, oh no, you're definitely starting Allen over those guys. Please don't overthink it, my friend. Don't overthink it. Lower your expectations with Keenan, but you're still starting him. Jacob says, thanks so much, my man. First year playing fantasy, made the playoffs. Could not have done it without you. Know, you maybe could have, my friend. Maybe you could have done better, but I am happy to hear that you've been rocking with us all year. And congrats on making it to the playoffs. Really happy for you, my friend. Alex says, lost by 1 point to third place after the Barkley fumble. Still got the number 1 seed. Hey, I mean, my man, if you got the number 1 seed, you're chilling. If you have the 1 seed, we're chilling. And Gerald says, started 2-5, trades and waivers, and you're advised 6 wins in a row to 8-6, and then make it into the playoffs. Goff, CJ, Bijan, Pollard, Pittman, Wilson, McBride, and Goddard. Hell yes. I mean, obviously, Stroud is going to be tough to deal with now. Hopefully, Goff is a viable pivot. We'll see. I'm wishing you the best of luck here. I am wishing you the best of luck, my friend. Now, I see Terrence says, does Underdog pay out this week for Best Ball Mania? So, no, I mean, you're going to the playoffs for Best Ball Mania. So, it's going to be over the next 3 weeks. And I believe first place for Best Ball Mania this year is going to be $3 million. We have a considerable amount of teams making the playoffs. I think we have like 25-ish. I'll need to double check the exact number. I'll get y'all all my exact results in Underdog drafts this year. I honestly kind of got lucky this past week. Looks like, at least in our high stakes tournaments, we are advancing higher than average, which is always the goal. And then you just got to get in the playoffs and see how things break your way. Last year we won 2 underdog tournaments, but hopefully we can take down Best Ball Mania. Quick 3 million would be nice. But yeah, they're not going to be able to pay out till the tournament's already done, my friend. Okay. Now, Bernie says, how would you adjust the roster for the rest of the playoffs? Starting Hurts, Swift, Kyron, Chase, Ayuk, Ingram, Hall, Keenan, and then on the bench, Jacobs, Kincaid, Dak, and Fields. So if you wanted to go Ingram over Kincaid, not going to fault you now that you have Dawson Knox in and you have Christian Kirk out. Jacobs hurt. I mean, really the only thing that we could do is be playing the matchups here at quarterback with Jalen Hurts taking a small step backwards, but I don't know. I would still be rolling with Jalen Hurts, even if guys like Dak Prescott have been better as of late. If you look at the implied team total for Hurts this next week, I mean, they do have him at about, I believe, 25.5 total yards. Now, Curve Square Store says, got to the playoffs in 3 leagues after a 1-6 start in 2. That is incredible, my friend. That is incredible. Congrats. Brian says, went from 1-4 to 9-5, and now the first seed in the playoffs. Thanks for the help. First year of the flock and has paid off. Congrats, my friend. How are y'all starting so slow and finishing so strong? That is just absolutely nuts, my friend. And Joe says, I lost a bye by 0.2. We have Nico, Tyreek, Achane in 1 league and play against all 3 of them in the other 2. What do I even root for? That is the tough spot when you play in a lot of fantasy leagues. Like, I play in so many leagues where we had like over 400 basketball leagues this year, where I had like 20 dynasty leagues as well. So it's not like I'm ever really looking at one particular matchup, which I know everybody always wonders, well, why don't you talk about your own teams too often? So like, what do you root for once you get up there in the amount of leagues that you're playing in? Typically, I just root for the guys that I try to draft a lot. So this year I was rooting for a lot of Jonathan Taylor, which we saw that turned out. But I don't know, my friend. I mean, maybe go to quarterbacks. Maybe you root based off quarterbacks, but good luck. And Pancake says, crazy for starting Stafford over Kyler and Fields. 6-point passing touchdown format, I'd say no. It's a great matchup against Washington, where the Rams are the second highest implied team total this week. 4-point passing touchdown format, maybe want to go Justin Fields with a rushing upside. We'll look into it a little later in the week, though. But Steven says, which 3 receivers are we going to start? Waddle, Wilson, Rice, Sutton, and Odell. We're going to be going Wilson, Rice, Waddle. Waddle, tough matchup against the Jets. If you really wanted to pivot from Waddle to Sutton, you can. Sutton obviously continues to score touchdowns. Sutton also had 4 targets this week, so I don't know. I don't know if we are going to have, I don't know what we are realistically going to get there if the volume isn't. Now, Ryan says, how rare do you think Jefferson teams advancing in Best Ball Mania are? There was this, I should have just saved this site. Let me go ahead and see if I can find it. I know since Underdog put out all the Best Ball Mania tournaments this year, like all the data is there. So you can, there's this site where you can look up a bunch of different stats about Best Ball Mania. I believe that you can even see the percentage of teams advancing with a particular player. So let me see. Goal ran the table in my money league 14-0. That is disgusting, my friend. Congrats. Young Dolly says, is Dobbs done as a starter? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Okay. Peyton says two things. Since Jefferson's questionable, does it do anything for Addison? Does he become relatable to flex? Or would you do Zay Reed or Addison? I'd go Zay Flowers over Addison. I would do that. Okay. So let me see. User buddy list, pick'ems, roster combos. Never mind. I guess we can't see that data. I don't know. During this season, I just kind of check out. We'll be diving into a lot of that during the offseason, but I don't know. Because the thing is, a lot of Jefferson teams had overlap with Cousins as well, which isn't great. I know that the advance rate was looking nuts at the beginning of the year. Logan says McBride versus Ferguson, McBride. Amari versus Godwin, Amari. And then versus Keaton Mitchell. We're definitely going Amari. Can't do Keaton Mitchell. Vadim says Jefferson's advance at 5.3% in best ball made. Vadim, where are you getting that? That was before tonight's game. It hasn't updated yet today. Vadim, what site are you getting that from? Let me see officially how many teams I'm advancing in Best Ball Mania. I had a $350 Rottweiler that was pretty damn close that I was tracking. I had a $1,000 Mastiff League that was really close that I was tracking. I really haven't been tracking Best Ball Mania too much. Okay, that's disappointing. My Best Ball Mania winnings fell. This is disappointing, ladies and gentlemen. I think I only advanced 22 teams in Best Ball Mania. Compared to what we did last year, that is absolutely pitiful. Last year, we had an advance rate almost at 40% for Best Ball Mania. This year, for that to just come crashing down. Guess what? That's what you get when you go in on JT. But it is what it is. Our high-stakes drafts came through for us, and hopefully we can take another couple down. If y'all don't know, we actually won 2 high-stakes tournaments on Underdog for $150,000 last year. But thought we were going to finish the season in a strong way and hopefully take down a few more tournaments. Taylor going down hurts us. We still have a ton of bites at the apple, so hopefully we can get it over the next 3 weeks, but looking less likely than last season. Mark says, Mahomes, Hall, Pollard, Mostert, St. Brown, Jefferson, Kincaid, Waddle lost this week, slipped into the playoffs 5 seed, lost by 0.3. Any suggestions for the playoffs? I would say don't overthink it. Still start the studs that got you there. I mean, I understand a lot of these players were disappointing. The only thing is monitor the Jefferson situation. But no, I think you're still going to start these guys. Obviously, can't do too much at this point. I mean, we can work the waiver wire. We're not going to be able to make any trades. My main thing is don't overthink it. Start the studs that were able to get you there in the first place. Jacob says, hey, Mason, need some help this week. Brees, Saquon, Jefferson, Flowers, Keenan, Kyron, winning 2-2-1, was the number 1 seed, lost 3 in a row. Now tied for the 5th. Ooh. Okay, so our running backs, we're going to be going Kyron Williams and Saquon Barkley. Our receivers are going to be going with Keenan Allen, Jefferson if Jefferson plays, Keenan Allen and Flowers if he doesn't. And then for the flex spot, we will be going with Breece Hall. But yeah, for sure play all 3 running backs. It essentially comes down to Jefferson or Flowers, and I will go Jefferson if Jefferson does play. Now, our next question coming out from Ty says, lost my redraft league round 1 this week because the Diggs and Amon-Ra bust. On the other hand, locked up the 102, 105, 112 in 3 seconds in the Dynasty League. Burrow, Hall, Walker, Achane, Pacheco, Addison, Johnson, Kirk, Levis. How do we look going into next season? I think it looks great. One thing that I know that it's hard not to do, but it's the initial thing everybody wants to, right? Is go out there and go, okay, well, let's pencil in, okay, say Marvin Harrison Jr. at the 102, assuming it's a super flex league. Well, let's go through and let's try to figure out exactly what we're doing with these picks and exactly how our team's going to look like next year. The reality of the situation is the picks just give you a lot of flexibility to make plays throughout the entire course of the offseason. Hold on to the picks, let them accrue in value. I think you're going to be in a great spot, my friend. And it does look like we have a lot of value that's going to be able to just continuously accrue down there at the bottom end. Peyton says, so Zay overreading the flex, thoughts on Swift rest of season. Talk about Swift in a video that comes out tomorrow. I'm ranking Swift as a low-end RB2 this next week. Still someone that we are starting. It's just been two very bad matchups back-to-back. And if we're looking at what we have with Zay versus Reed, I'm still going to be going with Zay. Zay just has a very high floor with no Andrews if you're looking at its target volume. Now, Kareem coming out saying, what's up, man? Need help, 8-6, fighting for first. Sit one between Moss and Javonte. So Javonte finally gets that rushing touchdown this past week, which we can be excited about. But you did have both Jaleel and P. Ryan playing snaps here. Whereas with Moss, I know Moss wasn't necessarily great this week, but he still does continue to see every single snap and every single touch out of this backfield. So to be honest with you, I'm probably going to go ahead. I will take Zach Moss over Javonte this week. Young Gulliad again says, I lied. I'm tied 6-8 with 6 teams total. I outscored them all by 100. I'm still in the playoffs. God bless. As long as you're still in the playoffs, my friend. As long as you are still in the playoffs. I mean, and I know this is something we talk about every year and people kind of get annoyed with us saying it, but when you get to the playoffs and everything's a week-by-week situation, it is a little bit more luck just because the sample size gets so small. Whereas the skill in fantasy football is getting your teams to the playoffs, scoring a lot of points in the regular season. And if you're able to do that and just put yourself in a spot where you have a realistic shot, anything can happen. Anything can happen. It's not like the real NFL, right? With the real NFL, you sneak into the playoffs and your quarterback's Kenny Pickett. You got no shot. In fantasy, anything can happen. Jacob says, Schultz, if he plays, or McBride this week. Oh, we're going to go McBride. I mean, Schultz obviously would be in a great spot if you have him playing, CJ Stroud playing, no Nico Collins, and no Tank Dell. But still, we don't know what that situation is really going to be like. McBride's just been crushing. But I think that should be it, ladies and gentlemen. We had a fire at the house today, and I ate way too many s'mores, so I feel like I'm going to throw up. Probably not a good call on my part, but I'm trying to chug some water. Hopefully, I feel a little bit better in a bit because I don't want to lay in bed with the sugar high and tummy ache, but we'll figure it out. But thank you so much for hanging out with us. Actually, let me show y'all something real quick. It was actually pretty cool. I opened up Instagram earlier today and I had a bunch of people tagging me with something. And ESPN posted a tweet of ours on both Instagram and Twitter. Dear God, they actually post a lot. Never mind. This isn't nearly as cool as I was expecting. I'm trying to find where they posted us, and just going back to 12 hours ago, they posted like 20 times already. So never mind this flex of what I thought was a flex is still cool, but not as cool. But I can't even find it. If you want to find it, Mason_Dodd on Instagram. You can find it there. Or at Mason.ffn on Twitter. I put it there as well. But thank you so much for hanging out with us, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope that you were able to make it to the playoffs. I really do appreciate you. And as always, I will be live every single night forever, essentially. We've been live every single day for 228 days in a row. And if you want more of our content this offseason, we're going to stop posting here pretty soon. And instead, we are going to be going over to our Dynasty channel. If you play Dynasty football, or if you play in a keeper league, or if you're interested in either, I'm sure you will love that channel. You probably already know it exists. Just look up Dynasty Football Flock on YouTube. You can find us there. We're going to start posting videos there pretty much every single day starting in 2 days. We already have a couple of videos out there last week. But that's where we dive a little bit deeper in depth and actually do some real research. Last question. Jakeem says, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 2 flexes, and a tight end. We have Hall, JT, Cook, Achane, Wilson, Nico, Ridley, DK, Kincaid, Likely, Dynasty. Got the bye for week 15. Who do we sit? Shallow Dynasty League, my friend, if you're only starting 2 receivers and a flex. But we are most likely going to be playing Hall, Achane at running back. Wilson, Nico, wide receiver. Nico's good to go. Then for our 2 flex spots, we're going to be going with Ridley, DK. Unless JT is good, then we're going to go JT, DK. And then we still will go Kincaid over Likely, even with Knox back in. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate y'all. Really hope that you have a great night. Mike, I'm going to get all this data for you. I'll post it on Twitter. I'll post it somewhere. High stakes teams did well. Best Ball Mania, sadly, I just checked. We only advanced 22 teams, which compared to last year when we are closer to 40% is piss poor, but it is what it is. My fault for drafting Jonathan Taylor. Hopefully, we can get a couple of those teams fighting for that last week. If y'all don't know, 16th place in Best Ball Mania last year. I won the Big Dog tournament and the Bulldog 2 tournaments. Last year, we did great. This year, we just need to win one more tournament. Give me one more tournament so we can keep our overall lead on most tournaments won on Underdog. But we'll see. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really appreciate y'all. Really hope you have a great night. And hope I get to see you tomorrow.